Welcome to the Outsmart Burnout Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Zaria Rubin, a functional medicine doctor, an international speaker, and a burnout badass because I've been there myself. After walking away from my own high-stress medical career, I discovered how to break free from burnout to reclaim my passion, purpose, and joy. And now I'm here to help you do the same. From science-backed tips to time-saving hacks, and hopefully some aha moments that just might change your life. So sit back, relax, and let's do this. Dr. Julie Merriman is a PhD educated counselor, educator, burnout researcher, author, and podcaster with nearly 30 years of experience at the intersection of mental health, academia, and somatic healing. She holds a PhD in counselor education and supervision from Texas Tech University and has served as professor, department chair, and associate dean, giving her a front row seat to the quiet burnout epidemic sweeping women in the helping professions. After her own scorched earth, as she refers to it, experience, a burnout so severe that she connects it to a subsequent breast cancer diagnosis, Dr. Jules, as folks call her, rebuilt her life from the inside out. That crucible became the foundation of Soul Joy, her book and framework blending polyvagal science, somatic healing, and chakra psychology. Her newest book, that just came out in April, entitled, Are We Gonna Have Sex or What? Okay, I cannot wait to talk about this, addresses the question hiding underneath every burned out woman's silence. What happened to my desire? She's also the host of The Compassion Fatigue Cure, a top 100 motivational podcast, and Sexy After 50. Boy, I cannot wait to talk about all this stuff. She practices from her ranch in Meridian, Central Texas. And I think she's surrounded by a bunch of animals, and I can't wait to hear Dr. Jules' story. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, well, we're so excited to have you because I feel like we're going to touch on all the things. We're going to touch on things that a lot of people don't talk about. Women, desire, and women over 50, because you know what? We're not dead yet. We're still alive.
That's right.
And
That's right.
sometimes it might feel like things have kind of crashed and burned, but I'm excited to dive in and to really get to the heart of the matter and get to the bottom of what's going on with women, burnout, sexual desire, intimacy, the kind of the crossroads of all of those things. It's not a topic that we've ever really addressed on the podcast. So I think it's about time. So, yeah, I usually like to start at the beginning. And I know you have a long history with psychology and mental health and addressing things like burnout and compassion fatigue. So that was your area of expertise, correct? Was compassion fatigue?
Absolutely. Yes. I've been
Yeah.
researching that since the early 2000s. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So you're ahead of the curve. So we've touched on it on this podcast, but for folks who might not be so familiar with the concept, tell us a little bit more about what compassion fatigue is, who gets it, what it looks like, what it feels like, and then we'll dive into your story because, of course, you knew everything about it, and yet,
Yeah. I crashed and burned. Absolutely.
exactly.
Yes. And I find that so often the case. We know better, but we don't always do better till we crash. But compassion fatigue intrigued me back in the, I don't know, mid 1900s. Good grief.
I know we
1990s.
sound like we're from another century, but we really are, so it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm 63 and I love it. I love the life I've lived. But I noticed that I've been a supervisor. To become a counselor, you have a 60-hour master's and you're supervised for 3,000 hours by a counseling supervisor. So I've been doing that for years and years. And I noticed my interns would come in just like, woohoo, let's do this, Dr. Merritt. No. And then 6 weeks later, they'd be dragging their leg across the floor like Igor. And I'm thinking, what has happened to these people? So that's really what piqued my curiosity to begin researching that construct. And it really, it's different from burnout, but both of them impact our nervous system. And that's a recent development that I've researched. But with compassion fatigue, Sue Joyner, who was a nurse, coined that term back in the 1990s. Charles Figley took her work and really ran with it. And then Barbara Stam, one of his students, really developed some instruments to help us measure compassion fatigue. But in essence, it's because we're so good at what we do. And by that, I mean, we give and we connect with those people we're working with, and we really give a piece of our heart to everyone we're working with. Now, maybe you're a nurse, maybe you're a physician, maybe you're a counselor, maybe you're an educator, or maybe you're a mom, who's connecting with all the things we do as moms. But it's not a there's a finite amount of care we can give that that it doesn't impact us, because as women, we're really good at giving, but we're not so good at receiving. And compassion fatigue really hits us. So we have given and not received, and we become very impacted. And it almost looks like depressive symptomology, if you will, but it's a little different. We become very cranky or irritable when we get home from work. We don't have a lot of our stuff left to give to those that we love. And really that's what really struck me. We become so impacted that our loved ones are the ones that suffer. We look to be performing at work, but we're collapsed on the inside when we get home. So compassion fatigue really, a lot of the students I've taught over the years come up with some shame. And even a research project I did showed that shame is a very place for this to land, because we feel guilty. We shouldn't be feeling this way. What are we doing wrong? And so we sit in silence feeling crazy, when in fact it's a very normal construct, and there's no shame in this game. It just means you're so good at what you're doing. You've given so much and not received. It's time to receive. So,
Mm. Yeah, I mean, obviously this hits home for me as a physician, a former physician who burned out in medicine, and the concept that it's people in the helping professions, so it could be anything where you're directly engaging with other humans and you're trying to help them. And it's I would say it's mostly women, correct? Who are
well,
affected?
I would say women are impacted at a greater number, because we're not just giving at home, we're giving in the boardroom, we're giving to I know, like, when I had my breast cancer, my husband, get this, was going through brain cancer. So
Oh
my
my
mother
goodness.
had a heart attack, who her ranch is just on I'm the closest child. Her ranch is very close to mine. So anyway, I mean, and that's,
Wow.
I'm not, I'm just a normal woman going through life, but that's not unusual for us to be hit by so many things. And who keeps
Mm,
the ball rolling? Who keeps that ball spinning? The girl,
mm,
normally it's the
mhm.
woman who's the caretaker and giving so many places. So yeah, I mean, I don't have specific research numbers to back up that it is women, but
Mm,
qualitatively,
yeah.
or
Yeah.
rather anecdotally, I would say that, yeah, women are probably
Yeah.
impacted more.
And then talk a little bit about the relationship between moral injury and compassion fatigue, because I feel like they often go hand in hand, especially in the helping professions, especially nowadays with all the constraints put on
Right.
providers and healthcare professionals, that we're not able to do the work that we know we need to do.
Right. And that's funny. I just recorded a podcast on moral injury and how we look at it. We're thinking, oh, we're burned out. Oh, and a lot of people don't even have the language to say compassion fatigued. But in essence, if we really get to it, it is moral injury. And I know when I was a dean, and that's one reason I walked away from that particular institution, I kept being told to do things and my job being threatened if I didn't do them. And it really is a moral injury, knowing that wasn't the right thing to do, knowing that it went against every code of ethics I've ever practiced in. And we see that a lot. I mean, the healthcare system is really set up to drain us dry, to squeeze every piece of life out of us and to push through, because a good provider will take that extra client. A good provider is going to stay because the next shift isn't covered. They're going to stay and cover that.
Right.
And We're made to feel very guilty or we're doing something wrong if we don't. But that moral injury is very real. And I think it really, what happens, it's the wound that burnout and compassion fatigue grow in. It
Mm,
becomes just an open wound that does not serve us. It and it's very hard. They really have trained us, the system, if you will, have trained us to not speak up. It's great if we're completely burned out or morally injured because we're just gonna put our nose to the grindstone and just go through, though they don't want us to recover and go, "Wait a minute, this isn't right." Yes.
right, right. Or that it's the individual's problem, it's not the system's problem. That,
Yeah,
well, you're
yeah,
just weak or you just can't hack it
yes,
because you're the canary in the coal mine. And you're recognizing that the system is asking you to do things that are not right. You're not able to serve patients or clients in the way that you know that you need to or want to. It's not the right thing to do. And so then that builds up and accumulates, and all that, that damage and that conflict really. And then the
yeah, it's
cynicism
conflict.
piece, of course, creeps in, which is really common. It's a cornerstone of burnout. And I think of compassion fatigue as well, where you see people get really cynical. And, we see this in medicine all the time. You have the gallows humor and you have people just, making jokes about patients, and it's a coping mechanism, but it's also a red
Absolutely.
flag that, like, okay, this is not right. We need to do something about this.
Well, absolutely, and then we're living in such a dysregulated nervous system, we don't even know how to get that stress cycle to complete. I mean, the idea that we could even get it complete is not even in our head. We push through. As you said, we just push through thinking, "This is just the way it is. I'm being strong. I'm showing up," and it really impacts our body. 'Cause
Mm,
the immune suppression that happens. The other day I'm still a department head at a university, and I had to take the department through an accreditation visit and such the other day, and I was running
mm,
around here
fun
so
times.
dysregulated. Oh, it was awful. It was awful. But, I'm worried, well, I don't want my other professor, my faculty to get fired because we don't get this finished. I don't want my students' degrees to not be worth the paper they're written on, So I'm pushing through, working 18-hour days because they say, do this, but do it by the end of the week. So, yeah. I mean, I had a 60-hour curriculum I had to rewrite. Anyway, where I'm going with this, because I know this happens in the healthcare system, I'm pushing through, knowing I'm dysregulated, knowing that I'm miserable. I just, I'm exhausted, but I pushed through because I had to meet that deadline. Now, I've gotten to the point in my healing that I recognized I was dysregulated, and I was able to go. My husband and I've been together 35 years. He knows me very well. I was able to have him help me co-regulate down, get my nervous system to calm down a little bit. And you know what? It took about 15, 20 minutes, and I felt so much better, and I was so much more available to do the work I needed to do. It In the past, when my first book, when I wrote that, I would not have taken that 15 or 20 minutes. I would have said, "Well, that's a waste of time. I'm wasting time. I'm not worth that effort. I'm not doing it." But we are worth that effort. We are worth Here's and I maybe you've noticed this too. The things it takes to regulate our nervous system and have us show up more, I'm not conjugating that right, have us show up more present. They only take a few minutes. They really don't take that long. But we get this idea that I just can't take that time to do that. I'm not going to do it. And we continue on that hamster wheel of just being very dysregulated and pushing through a very unsavory system.
Yeah, so this is a perfect opportunity. I feel like I'm happy that the term and the concept has become such a buzzword. On the one hand, that we hear about nervous system regulation and dysregulation constantly. It's in the media, in the news, on social media, all over the place. It's all over Instagram. But I feel like sometimes it might be overused or misused. And I would love, since you're an expert and you've written a book about it, if you could sort of give us a little definition, background on what the concept of nervous system dysregulation and versus nervous system regulation and what that looks like, and what
Right.
are some of the things we might be able to do, because I think a lot of people just think
dysregulation is your wild and all over the place, and regulation is your calm. But it's not quite that simple.
No, it's not because there's a lot that's going on when we get nerve dysregulated or regulated. And, it's really the research on this. I know poor Hayes really got in the 90s, really got a lot of accolades for his research. And then it's come out that people are challenging the research, not so much about it. Us being regulated or dysregulated, but some of the finer points of his theory are being challenged, which the research on nervous system goes back to the turn of the century. I mean, I'm trained in bioenergetics. I'm a yoga therapist. I'm trained in EMDR. I'm trained in all kinds of somatic body work that really it's scientifically backed these things that are going on. Maybe the words weren't just right, what Jorge said, but what he's talking about is very correct. So when we're regulated, we are okay, I'm gonna start with dysregulated. When we have been living in such a dysregulated state and I mean, I've been a clinician for 30 years, and 20 of it, I was a hot mess, I'm much better now, but I was living on a cocktail of adrenaline and cortisol because I was going all the time. Our brain becomes very cranky with energy when we're in a dysregulated state. The frontal cortex is not as available for us. There's all kinds of pieces of our brain that will react to the adrenaline and the cortisol, and so the brain's very selfish, so it takes pleasure and those kinds of things offline because we don't need it to survive, right? We're running from a dinosaur. We don't need to reproduce. So when we are in that dysregulated state, we are not fully living in our body. We're not fully at home. Our body does not feel safe. And safety has everything to do with pleasure and a good sex life. If you do not feel safe in your body, we're not gonna show up. Our pelvic floor is so tight. Don't we do that? We're so tensed and tightened up that pelvic floor tightens with us. So the blood flow is not going to our genitals like it needs to. And then we go do some Kegels. I'm already tighter than a football. What do you mean? So that dysregulated state really kicks us into, and I'm using poor Hayes language, but it helps us understand. We are in a state of fight or flight or dorsal vagal where we're completely dissociated. We're numb. And girl, that's most of the ladies I work with will tell me, I don't feel right. I don't feel like myself. I feel like my life force is leaking and I'm completely numb. It- I don't feel anything that's happening in my body. We become very disembodied and these beautiful floating heads of competence who has no clue what's going on below our neck. So
Mm.
a very dysregulated nervous system really leads us to that. We have a very social state where we feel it's we can connect with others and we can really hear them and be present. But when we're dysregulated, it's very hard. In fact, I know I here was my clue. I had met with my secretary when I was going through the, accreditation last month, and she had said some things, and I got off the call, and I was like, "I don't know what the heck she just said to me." I was so
Mm.
dysregulated. I wasn't able to listen and connect. That is a big sign something's going on. And we get well, even our dopamine receptors get all confused because we get little dopamine hits from things we do when we're really dysregulated, but it really will confuse our poor brain to know, is this good? Is this bad? I don't know anymore. I just don't even know what's going on with this woman. So a regulated state really allows us to connect and be present and embodied, know how we're feeling. That's why I really enjoy the chakra psychology. If I'm wearing my neuroscientist hat, I'm going to talk to you about the polyvagal system and the vagus nerve and where all it runs in our bodies, and I'm going to look at an anatomy chart. But if I'm talking about chakra psychology, the yoga tradition, I'm going to talk about chakras, our energy centers in our body. And the interesting thing is that the vagus nerve runs exactly where our chakra centers run. So it really gives ladies a place to think about, oh, my chest is really tight. let me be curious about that. What might that be telling me? Because in chakra tradition, that's going to be about relationships and love and those kinds of things. And I tell you, it fascinates me because a lady will sit down and start talking to me about her chest being tight, and sure enough, something's going on in a relationship, maybe with herself or someone else, but it it helps me have a tool to help my ladies get embodied and know what to look for in their body. And that root chakra starts the spine of our or the base of our spine. That's all about safety. And that's one of the very first ones we need to get regulated so that we can open our body up for pleasure again.
Yeah, I love that connection that you made between, like, you know, polyvagal theory, neuroscience, neuroanatomy. I mean, I'm a neurologist, so I geek out over that stuff, but I'm also practice yoga for 30 odd years. And so to connect some of the Eastern, ancient wisdom with the more modern neuroscience, it's like, well, there was some wisdom to that. Like it actually tracks with all the different centers and all of the different pathways of the vagus nerve. So that's really interesting. And I would love to, you know, make that connection a little more tangibly on a practical level and talk about your new book because your new book really does go directly into the connection between nervous system, pathways, activation, chronic activation, burnout, because I guess we haven't really connected those dots that when your nervous system is dysregulated and chronically in a stress mode, in fight or flight mode, that does lead to burnout. And then that leads to loss of desire. And
Right.
so walk us through that path and tell us more about what's going on there. Because I don't think a lot of
Yeah.
people make that connection. They're like, well, I'm stressed out at work. So obviously I don't want to, you know.
Yeah, the last thing I want is another thing on my to-do list that
Right. Oh, I have to have sex now. Ugh.
Yeah. Yes, and they are hand in hand. I mean, is it the chicken and the egg? I don't know, but but they yeah. So, I think and it's fascinating to me as I work with women and just the research I've done over the years, women have practiced we don't honor our bodies. I mean, we just don't. We ride them. It's a ride or die kinda thing, and then we end up in your office wondering what the hell's wrong with us. Why do my feet burn all the time? Why is my liver not operating like it needs to? And if we will just really honor our body, become embodied, and live in our body, it's not just something to drag around. But when it comes to desire, as I said earlier, when we are in fight or flight or dorsal vagal state, desire is the first thing to go. And our nervous system is doing what it's designed to do. It's not being a bad girl. It's doing exactly what it's designed to do to try and keep us alive and functioning. But for so long, especially when you look at I mean, my kids are in their 40s now, raising their own kids, but when you look at what we do very early, we get married, we have kids, we build a career. I mean, it might be in different order, but we're doing and giving for so long. One of the first things that goes is even the practice of desiring sex or being connected to your spouse. I've done a lot of marriage counseling and I've worked with a lot of roommate spouses that just over the years, as she swallowed her truth to keep the peace, resentment came up because her needs are not getting met. And the thought of him touching her is like, not doing it. Or maybe she is running a practice and has handled patients and clients all day long. She's exhausted. She gets home. We've got to do housework. We've got to take care. The kids have to get to soccer practice. Oh my God, who didn't do laundry? What are we going to have for dinner? And then your husband touches you or your partner touches you. You just tense up. Like, one more thing. I don't have the space for it. I do not have, I'm living past capacity as it is. So this happens for years. Desire, we have not lost our libido. She is still there, but she is buried under all kinds of responsibilities and things to do. And the idea of even connecting with that partner seems very foreign. So it is a sad thing that happens, but we're just trying to survive. And what do we do also? We love our partner. We want to, okay, I'll throw you a bone. We fake an orgasm. We have obligatory sex. We are really teaching our body and our nervous system that this is not a safe place to be. I've got weight, and I don't mean like we're going to be physically hurt. I mean safe in that I can open and be responsive and be vulnerable. Because think about a really yummy sex session there, and it's not always about orgasm, and it's not always about intercourse. But I'm just throwing that out there. Vulnerability is a huge piece of what is necessary for desire and connection and intimacy. And if we don't feel safe, just maybe we're just, I don't know. I'll admit, when I was younger, I'd be ticking through my to do list, while my husband was doing whatever he was doing, and I was not present. But I know I'm not the only woman. I've worked with too many and go,
Yeah,
yeah, we do that. We got to be
absolutely.
present. Yeah. Yeah. But
Yeah.
go
It's
ahead.
so interesting. No, the connection. So I think it's important to make this connection between nervous system safety and desire because I don't think we often make it. And so we don't realize that when our nervous system is under threat, now that threat does not have to be literal or tangible. Like because our nervous system is so primitive and so ancient. So being chased by a saber-toothed tiger is really the same as being chased by some, nasty emails or comments or a situation at work or dealing with, really stressful, very traumatic events with patients or clients. It's the same. Our nervous system doesn't differentiate between that. And so if that's prolonged, if that exposure is prolonged and we don't ever get a break from it, we don't ever get to reset, we're in that heightened state of arousal, but not the right kind of arousal. It's the arousal of the sympathetic nervous system of like fight or flight, survive, flee, or shut down and play dead. That's the freeze
Right.
mode. Then we're not going to be able to switch gears, be in that relaxed state, be in that, you know, rest, digest, procreate stage
Yeah.
because it's not safe to be there.
Yeah.
And so, how do women might be listening to this and being like, well, I don't know, I've got a great life and I've got a great husband and house and job and this and that. Like, I'm not in any danger. What are you guys talking about? But it's not like clear and present actual danger. It's nervous system activation. And how then do we help women to get out of that state and get into the state where they are able to actually feel things again?
Right. Well, I think first starting the conversation, even awareness, I think that self awareness is eminently important because if we don't hit that, we're not even going to be open to doing the work that we need to do to become regulated and connected. And it's little bitty things. It's not this big lightning bolt that's going to happen. It's going to be little bitty things that we do for ourselves. I think it's important to also to talk a little bit about desire because desire for women, only about 10 to 15% of women ever, I'm talking from 20 to 65, have spontaneous desire where you go, ooh, this is what I want spontaneously. We really, 85 to 90% of us depend on responsive desire, where we can be open to, connecting and even thinking about, okay, that might be fun. Sometimes we need to go ahead and try and engage those mirror neurons and try and co-regulate with our partner to begin that idea of getting to desire. So often we do arrive at midlife with maybe our marriage has not been maintenance like it needed to be. So really trying to be open to let's reconnect. Let's even, girl, here's the other thing just hit me that's so important. I have worked with so many couples that have never even talked about sex, they don't have the language to even have that conversation. Like, I could never say that to him. Well, if he's the one banging you, he's the one you need to talk to. That, I'm sorry, but
No, this is gold. Yeah. No, I mean, if you can't talk about it, it's pretty hard to do it in a way that is, safe and consensual and responsive and stimulating.
Absolutely.
If it's
Yes.
too taboo to talk about, then I don't know what you're doing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and then and a lot of shame comes up when it comes to sex,
Hmm.
be it cultural or from your family or some
Religious,
trauma.
historical. Yep. Hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
Trauma.
yeah,
Yep.
ancestral. So, really, maybe you need to do some work with a therapist to work through whatever that might be, because that connection with your partner depends on a very open and honest conversation about your clitoris. I'm about to do a podcast on just all the parts of a clitoris because a lot of women have never even looked at their clitoris, let alone touched it or understand what feels good and what doesn't. And most men don't even know it exists.
They're
It's
not sure how to find it.
no, they're not sure how to find it. And if we can't have a conversation to get them there, I mean, that's just important. Same thing with his penis. We need to understand how that works. I just did a podcast on how a blowjob after 50 can really help regulate your own nervous system. And it's a how to because a lot of women I found are embarrassed about a blowjob, don't understand what all is involved. And that shame and embarrassment tells your nervous system, I'm not safe. It's not safe to be vulnerable in this body. So we really have to be open to understanding safety in our body. And you did a beautiful job explaining that. It's not it's that saber-toothed tiger is gonna eat us. It's that primitive system that is just responding to all the hormones that are being dumped and thoughts we are having about something. And our little amygdala is scanning the environment for danger all the time. So let's say and some of us are really sensitive to look, so you walk in the bedroom undressed and look at the way your husband looked at you and immediately feel shame or like, "Oh my god, he thinks I'm gross."
Hmm.
And then
Or if he's distracted and looking at his phone.
yes. Yes, yes, or just so
You're like, what am I,
but
chopped liver?
yeah, well, that's gonna send a signal to your nervous system, "Well, I'm not safe, he doesn't want me," or, I mean,
Mm.
whatever it might be. It can be very little things, but the essence of this conversation is that you need to have an open, honest conversation with your partner in a manner that is safe. I tell couples, "Let's not schedule sex because that's just one more thing for your nervous system to think, oh my God, I got to do this. I got to perform. Let's take performance out of sex and let's have that conversation at the kitchen table, dressed or on the park bench, dressed, not naked in the bedroom where we're both very vulnerable and open more to feeling shamed or blamed. But
But we know, like, if we don't schedule it, like if something is not on the calendar, it's not going to happen. But then it feels very unsexy to schedule sex. So how do you get around that catch 22?
right. Yeah. It is a catch 22 and there's not a perfect answer. I would invite you to have a ritual. And by that I mean like my husband's a farmer, rancher, and state trooper, had to retire because of the brain cancer, but for years he was in law enforcement. So his schedule, we just never knew. It was crazy. But we have a ritual. I don't care if he was on night shift or morning, but we have coffee together. That's our time to touch, hold hands, look in each other's eyes. That is so important to look into each other's eyes. That truly is the window to our soul, truly helps you feel connected. Those mirror neurons love that. But have a ritual where you are connecting with each other. And I can't tell you how many times our ritual led to sex. Not that it was planned, but it was intimate and the desire came and yeah, it led to time that we spent together that was very that still it we do I mean, we did it this morning. We always have our coffee and yeah, we had sex too, but we always
Okay, I love this. I love that for you. We did not. We were trying to get my kiddo up and get her to school, and then we had to get out. He had a patient, had a meeting, had to record my podcast. Like stuff like
right.
life gets often gets in the way, and especially when you have younger kids,
It
it's a challenge.
It is. We just my granddaughter was staying with us, for the last few days. So, yes, I mean, we were back into
Yeah.
the parenting fold. But that ritual is eminently important for a couple to have. And, maybe it's 5 minutes, maybe it's 15 minutes, but every day, you're gonna come together and check in. And it's not always about
I love
intercourse.
that.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's it's not always about intercourse. It's about intimacy.
Yes.
And
Okay, so
that
you're talking about the difference between intimacy and desire and how one can sort of lead to the other in a sense.
it can. It can. When that body feels safe and when he too, but I'm talking about her today, when she really gets to that resentment, and I call resentment a sacred emotion because we can learn so much from it. But resentment happens in long term marriages when we feel like we're not getting our need, or long term relationships, not always a marriage, but when we feel like our needs are not getting met. And I would gently and lovingly say, the only person that can meet our need is that woman in the mirror that talks to us each morning. We have a responsibility to ourselves. And so often, as I said earlier, we swallow our truth to keep the peace, and then we get resentful because our needs didn't get met. So, really understanding that resentment, really becoming at one with it. I mean, my boobs kind of get in the way, but trying to touch your sternum and your solar plexus chakra, we have so many. I mean, if you do a little pressure there, it does connect with that vagus. It's rich with nervous system right in there. And breathe into it and just ask yourself so lovingly, what is this feeling? What is it that I need? We don't do that for ourselves very often, and then hold the space long enough to have an answer. And maybe it's just an essence of something, not a direct answer. But that's where I really invite her to say that out loud because you need to hear, your nervous system needs to hear you hold that space for yourself. What is it that you need? You're valuable. What is it that you need? We're so busy doing, we don't stop to be. But getting that resentment addressed really does help with the intimacy.
Yeah, that's a really good one. I think Gottman, in the whole the Gottman method and marriage counseling, and we call it contempt, that it really does get in the way. And that resentment or that familiarity also, when you've been with the same person for a long time and like little things start to bug you or things have built up and resentment starts to build up or not being seen, not being heard, not being valued, that can really derail intimacy and desire.
Oh, it
And
is.
it's
Yeah.
yeah, and I think that I mean, this book and everything that you're working on and addressing, which I love, is geared towards women over 50 and women in midlife. And, I think there's a part where you talk about low libido in midlife that it's we're often women are just often told that that's just life and it's hormonal and well it's you going through perimenopause, menopause, too bad so sad, and it's a hormonal problem, but it's and it in some respects it is, but it's a lot more than that. And so I think that this conversation that we're having today is really important to bring in the nervous system aspect of it and the safety piece and the intimacy piece and how that all weaves together with the hormonal piece. Because,
Right.
yeah, I mean,
I
these hormones are decreasing and diminishing. So it's not like it's not part of the equation, but the equation is more complicated than that.
Yeah, it's not all the equation. I just took a copy of the book to my hormone doctor because it's not the whole equation. I've worked with lots of ladies who have their hormone replacement, it fully intact and they're practicing that, but still not getting to the intimacy piece. Libido still not returning. And I know
Yep.
Dr. Daniels was like, "Yeah, that's right, Merriman." Anyway, he'll be sharing the book, but we have to address that nervous system component. We have to get things regulated. We have to also remember, especially when we look at long term relationships or any relationship, novelty also plays a piece. Desire needs novelty to be in the room. And I don't mean necessarily swinging from the chandelier with a new position, although at 63, if you do that, please
Hey,
stretch. Please, please stretch before you do that. We don't end up at the ER.
please let us know in the comments. Yeah.
Yeah, would love to know. But novelty is about doing new and interesting things together. So, like, my husband and I just went and spent a month in Spain and kicked around and had lots of wonderful, novel experiences together. That even this morning, as we were talking, having
I
our
love
coffee,
Spain. I've been to Spain 3 times. I love it. Oh my god, I
it's
wanted to move to Barcelona. Oh my god.
I right? Oh, it's wonderful. Yes. We had the best time, and we're still talking about, "Oh, remember this and remember that," and it continues that connection. And yes, we love to try new positions, and in fact, I've it's fun to be they have these sex boxes you can get, which that is not the right word. It's not like a sex box, but there's subscriptions that have, like, little things in them. Maybe it's a sex toy and a
It's like
video you can
fun
watch to yeah, just fun,
things to
novel little
spark
things.
spark a conversation and to try new things. Yeah, I like
Yes,
that. Yeah.
try something new. You're never too old. It's never too late, and in fact, I'm about to start a box like that for us gals over 50 because the boxes we've tried, it's just the young kids. I was looking it's like, "Well, we have done
It's like,
that.
yeah,
We have done that."
that's
But
awesome. I love that idea. Sign
yeah,
me up.
yeah, absolutely. Well, it's so fun when it comes, you're both it's like Christmas, you open the box and see what all's in there. But it's important to keep novelty in the room. Otherwise, desire smokes a cigarette in the corner going, "Boring." This is boring. So we need to make an effort. And I think, that's something I just wrote a script for a podcast about sex being a skill. We were taught to drive a car. I mean, back in the 70s when I did it, you had to drive for so many hours and
Yes.
then
Take a
pass a
test, all
test.
these things.
Yeah, and the driver's ed guy was telling you this, that, and the other, and but when it came to sex, it was something that you'd better not do before marriage. You're going to hell if you do, and of course, I graduated high school in '81, so the girl that did it was called a hussy.
Yeah,
Nobody ever sat down and talked about the skill of sex. Sex is a skill. It's not just
absolutely.
yes, but we do not approach it like that. We think, "Oh, well, my body just isn't doing that anymore, so I'm done." No, at 63, my body responds differently than it did at 20, but honey, it responds in a
Yeah,
better, deeper way than it did at 20.
it's different. You hear all these stories about people, people in their 80s having a great time, and I'm like, "That's awesome. Bring it." Yeah.
Right. Well, a friend of mine that is a psychiatrist at a nursing home said that there's more STDs in the nursing homes than in high schools now because of
I have
Viagra,
heard this. I have heard this. Yeah.
which is great. I mean, our body continues to perform and do, but I would invite the beautiful lady listening to think about sex is a skill. And we might have to learn it a little differently as we age, but it's still very available to us and
How do we
yummy.
get the husbands to perhaps work on the skill set?
Right. Well, that's a great point. And we do it as you know, I encourage couples to approach it like put a white lab coat on and be really curious as a mad scientist and try some different things. But it's only going to start by having those conversations. And I put some scripts in the book actually, because I found couples just did not have the language to try and give them a language to talk about sex. Sit down together and map your bodies together. Understand what part of his penis feels the very best. Have him understand what part of your clitoris really responds. What does and it's not all about the genitals. In fact, I have couples start with I live pretty close to Fort Worth, Texas, and there's some great sex stores, upscale, very nice, designed for couples, even has a sex therapist on, in suite that you can talk to. But to go get a
Okay,
break.
we need this in Portland. This is amazing. Who knew that in Texas?
I know, right? Well, I think it's a national chain actually, but there's some great sex stores out there where you don't feel like you have to have a bath when you leave, they're
Yeah,
very
they're not like
nice and
porn stores, they're sex
right.
stores. Yeah,
Yes. Yes,
exactly.
designed for couples, but I will assign a couple to go get a new vibrator, not to use on your genitals, but to start just getting pleasure back online because she pleasure has been so starved. She needs to even be reminded that she exists. So just and using the vibrator on various places in her arms, just finding places that feel good. Like my breasts are very different now because I had a double mastectomy and a reconstruction and I had a great surgeon. I got to keep my nipples, but they're very different than they were at 20, if you will.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we can do those maps together. So that's a place to start with your partner. Just pleasure mapping, having those really what might feel like embarrassing conversations, and they're not. You're both adults. This is allowed to start the conversation that ends up in some really fun sex. But and tantric, it's very important too. Just being because so often orgasm is the goal, and I encourage couples to have intimacy as the goal, and being present as the goal. And if orgasm comes, that's beautiful. But there's a lot of fun things you can do just being
Along the
together.
way. Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Well, I love that. Yeah. I mean, when I was truly burned out, obviously sex was not on the menu, on the table. I couldn't read a book. I mean, I couldn't even engage in that. And I love reading, and reading is very enjoyable. And how I slowly found my way back was through tango dancing. So I took up tango dancing when I was
love
very
that.
burned out. And that actually kind of helped me address my burnout and really get out of medicine ultimately, because I knew that was what was burning me out. And it was that physical connection even to a random stranger, and that I mean, tango dancing is pretty intimate, and it's just and to the connection to the music, and it's very passionate, and it was just an incredible way to sort of, like, wake everything up and realize, I yes, I can feel things again. I am a living, breathing human being. I am not completely dead inside, because burnout will do that to you. It will sort of shut everything down, and you're just kind of like
Everything.
a shell, and you're functioning, you're surviving. You're definitely not living or thriving or anything. So I think it's these small windows and ways back in that we can try to find. Yeah, I mean, my goodness, I this conversation is getting spicy, and I feel like I could talk to you forever. We have a final segment on the show that we call Rapid Fire, where I ask you some fun, quick questions, and they often lead to some deep insights. And then, of course, we'll share with folks how they can find you and find your book and connect with you. But what is the most ridiculous thing women are told about their libido in midlife?
That it's dead, that they're done. You're just
Deal?
old. You're you're dried up. Go away. It's not.
Okay, we didn't really get too deep into like something called good girl syndrome, but I know that you talk about that a lot. And I think folks could identify what that might be, that, we're under all of this pressure to be good. And what is a good girl syndrome behavior that you still catch yourself in?
I'm in people pleasing recovery. I mean, I was born in the early 60s in Fort Worth, Texas. My daddy, I was taught to my value was very tied to my performance. And I still will find myself struggling to say no sometimes because I don't want to displease, let someone down.
Mhm, mhm. Okay, this is a good one. What is one thing that ranch life has taught you about the body that no textbook ever covered?
I tell you, when you see babies born out here on the ranch, in fact, I have a goat. I have my blue heeler babysitting this goat right now. It's about this big. The mother died yesterday, and so I'm bottle feeding the goat. But I've really learned about the stages of nature. Death is, and I don't think we do a good job in society understanding that death is a very natural part of life. But I think that living on the ranch, you really learn that, and
Yeah.
more than I could ever learn out of a textbook.
Oh. What is something that you wish someone had told you in the middle of your burnout?
That I was enough. My need to prove my worth and performance really rode my burnout to the ground, and I'm valuable just for being me.
Mm, okay. I love that. All right. If this episode with Dr. Jules has resonated with you, and I bet it did, because let me tell you, I we touched on so many things. I learned a whole lot. I have a lot of ideas cooking now, and please, listen to the episode, like it, share it, leave us a review. And if you want to connect with Dr. Jules and you want to get her book, tell us all the places where we can do that.
All the places. Well, everything is on my website, juliemerrimanphd.com. I've got the books linked there. I've got a great desire reset guide that's free that the audience might enjoy. 72 hours to light that fire. And
Okay.
I've also got a somatic signatures quiz that's free if she's trying to decide what kind of burnout she's really suffering from. It's really based on nervous system stuff, but yeah, everything's on the website or Instagram, or I have a YouTube that I have a lot of videos on my YouTube.
Perfect. And we will put all of this in the show notes. And if people want to get your book, it's got a really fun title and it's got a long subtitle. Tell us again. It's
Are we going to have sex or what? Which here's a fun note.
okay. I love that. I love it.
Well, and the story behind that is that's what I said to my husband on our first date 30 something years ago.
Oh my
He's
God.
younger. I had to pull him along. That
I, girl, same.
I love it.
Okay, that's amazing. So, yes, the book is called Are We Gonna Have Sex or What? I friggin' love the title. And so, yes, we'll have all this information in the show notes. Please follow Dr. Jules. Go get a copy of her book tonight and see if we can turn up the heat, even though it's getting hot here in Oregon anyway. And, please do share this episode with a friend who could use it, because I'm sure there's a lot of women out there who are struggling. They're burned out. Their marriages feel like roommate marriages. And this might just help light the fire. And, as we say around here, as always, burnout is not your destiny, it's a wake up call.